So I've got one of my mates around and we were having a bit of a debate as to Floyd Mayweather and what it's going to take to actually beat him. I thought we'd both make an appearance in this one because we actually disagree quite heavily. Do you want to have a quick say on what you think it's going to take to beat Floyd?
Yeah, I mean, first things first, I'll probably put it out there. I think there's no sort of guarantee that anyone will beat Floyd. I'm not saying I think it's possible to beat the guy, but I think, what I do think is for someone to have a chance of beating him, or the most likely way he will be beaten, I think he will have to be sort of, outrushed, outbeaten by a very tough brawler character. I think when Hatton took him on a couple of years ago, I thought there was a lot of hype there, probably a bit too much hype for someone of Hatton's sort of calibre and skill, but I think it would take a sort of Hatton-Maidana type character to really get in, fluster Floyd, risk burning out for the sake of actually knocking the bloke out. I don't think you're going to outpoint Floyd.
That's interesting. Okay, you think the only way to beat him at this stage is purely by a knockout?
I think it would have to be a knockout. I think he's too quick, defence is too strong. I just don't think you can outclass a guy of his skill. I mean, he looked as good as ever in this last fight, I'd say.
That's fair. So you reckon we're looking at a Maidana type fighter, similar assets, but just better, more power?
Yeah, better and more powerful. I mean, Maidana first fight seemed to really go for him. There's a lot of positives from that, but he went for him and ultimately didn't knock him out. Didn't do that. I don't know if there's a guy out there who's capable of that. My guess is not. But I think theoretically speaking, if he was to lose his unbeaten record, it would be by that type of fighter. I don't know.
You think it's someone who's like rushing in and a lot
just
of work,
making it extremely uncomfortable for the guy. I mean, yeah. I think anyone can get knocked out by one very good punch. I think it's going to take someone to go at him and do that. Someone big puncher, someone who's willing to take that risk, and it's hard to find that guy who will take that risk. Yeah,
I mean, for what it's worth, I don't agree. I get that. I know Floyd looked quite uncomfortable at times in the Maidana 1 fight, certainly, and I think you're right that Maidana made it uncomfortable for him. What I think is that Floyd's beaten Alvarez, he's beaten Maidana, he's beaten Hatton, he's beaten the best that we've seen of that type of fighter. And I know you're saying you think the only way to beat Floyd is to knock him out. I actually disagree. I think Floyd is so strong defensively and his movement is so good. It's actually a near impossible task to knock him out. So I'd prefer to see someone try and go speed for speed with Floyd. And that's where I think that the actual most likely person to beat Floyd would be say a Manny Pacquiao of 3 or 4 years ago, or an Amir Khan of today. Someone who can have the feet and have the hand speed to actually cause Mayweather the same problems that he causes other types of opponents, just because I think Maidana 1 certainly is the best that kind of rushing in brawler type opponent is going to offer Floyd. And whilst Maidana made that fight competitive at stages, it was still a wide decision, specifically in my opinion. So disagree on that front. Would be interested.
Examples of him struggling against classy boxers that you mentioned.
If we look at the Shane Mosley fight, I'm not saying that was a close fight by any stretch of the imagination. Floyd did win, but we're looking at Mosley actually asking questions of Floyd. He caught Floyd, he was feinting, he was moving. Zab Judah's another one. Zab Judah, possibly not one of the best names on Floyd's record, but he's a very fast, agile, speedy type opponent, and he asked Floyd questions. Now, we know what happened when Zab Judah fought Amir Khan. I think if Zab Judah was able to ask questions of Mayweather, what sort of level is Khan gonna be able to cause? A young Khan coming in, peak of his life. It's going to be an interesting fight, and I at least think it's going to offer a sort of different question and a different test to Mayweather to what we've seen recently from Alvarez, Maidana, that type of guy. Well, what do you think about weight divisions? Obviously, Floyd's fought at light middleweight before. He's fought at welterweight and a lot lower weights. Welterweight seems to be his most comfortable position. Do you think that towards the end of his career, he should step into a weight that is totally out of his comfort zone. I mean, let's put it this way: there's no way Floyd Mayweather is a middleweight. He's a welterweight. But do you think? Would you like to see him take a fight at middleweight? You know, there's been talk of a freak showdown with Bernard Hopkins if Hopkins lost a lot of weight, or you know, even super middleweight, the likes of Andre Ward, or do you think you'd prefer to see him at welterweight against the Khans and Brooks of this world?
I think Floyd's absolutely, completely and utterly obsessed with keeping his unbeaten record intact. I don't think, although people might like to see it, and I think from a sort of fan's perspective, people messing around weight divisions is fascinating. I don't think it would be a risk that would even be worth discussing at this point. I don't think Floyd would go down that route purely because it's a huge unknown, and what's it actually going to prove banging out Bernard Hopkins? Like,
I suppose he's 50. Yeah, it would be a big draw, but you're right. It's kind of a more of a freak zone. Probably not the best for his record. Do you Yeah, I mean, do you think the Pacquiao fight is realistic, or do you think that that's gone for now?
there's always chat, isn't there? I mean, Floyd did his standard sort of, saying he's open to it if Pacquiao agrees. There's lots of. He talks a good game. I don't know how competitive that fight would be at all, and
Yeah.
it seems that the sort of drug testing, the specifics of actually getting that fight, on paper, it's just not really going to happen.
I kind of think if it was going to happen, it would have happened a few years ago. Like, I think the interesting thing is that he's hired Alex Ariza as a strength and conditioning coach for 2 years. So even though he's billed at having 2 fights, next May and next September, do we really see him retiring after those 2 fights at 49-0? When that big 50 is there, beating Marciano's record. I think realistically, Floyd will finish his contract with Showtime and then flog himself to the highest bidder for a massive 50-0 showdown. I agree he won't fight Pacquiao.
Is Kell Brook completely out of the question with these sort of conversations?
I think Brook Khan, at present, I don't think Brook is a big enough name. I think he doesn't have the risk-reward ratio. He's not going to bring in a lot of money for Mayweather, and I don't think he's as marketable. If he beat Amir Khan, who is a bit of a superstar internationally, I think Brook does enter the fray, but I don't think without that fight with Amir Khan, he's in the fray, and I think it very much depends who Khan fights first. Can he get the Mayweather fight in May, or will he fight Brook and potentially the winner go on to fight Mayweather? I also think there's potential for a big money rematch against either Miguel Cotto or Saul Alvarez, both for whom are, Cotto obviously recently beat Martinez. Alvarez, he's going to have some big fights next year. There's a potential for a rematch there. That would leave one other fight. If you say Khan or Brook is one fight, Cotto and Alvarez is another fight.
Is Brook Pacquiao possibility at all?
It's a possibility. I think with the politics in boxing, Pacquiao's likely. I mean, first and first, I think Pacquiao's in a very, very tough fight against Chris Algieri. If Pacquiao loses that, any talk of Pacquiao in big fights to come goes out the window. Could Brook fight Pacquiao? It's possible. I think most likely Brook will go straight in for the Khan fight. I think that will be his most likely test next. If he can't get the Khan fight, I think we'll see him fight someone with a big name who isn't really a threat. And by that I mean the likes of Andre Berto, Paulie Malignaggi, one of those type of guys. A guy who can't really beat Brook but is a big name. I think at this point, with the welterweight division stacked as it is, you can't risk someone like Brook taking on a Devin Alexander or a Keith Thurman, for example, without first getting the Khan or the Mayweather or the Pacquiao fights, because you're risking such big money if you lose one of those fights. And for that reason, I think Brook will play it safe unless he gets one of the real big fights. Definitely.
When you say play it safe, do you mean just hang around and wait for a big fight?
I think he'll fight the Paulie Malignaggi's or Brandon Rios's or Andre Berto's, guys who can sell tickets,
but aren't really a threat.
Paulie Malignaggi couldn't knock me out. Like, I don't think he's gonna cause Kell Brook a big trouble. But we'll see. I think Brook's a good guy. I think he's got vast calibre. I think the other thing, and I know a very famous online YouTuber made this comment, so I don't want to pass it off as my own. So credit to Richard Dwyer if he's watching. But Brook's got a 12-inch cut on his leg, made by a machete. Like, this isn't like, oh, he's broken his finger, he'll be back in a few months. Like, Kell Brook is looking to fight Amir Khan, arguably the best mover in world boxing. And he's doing that a few months after having a deep leg cut with a machete that's left a 12-inch scar. He can't walk properly at the minute, and he's going in against the best mover in world boxing. Like, I'm sure that fight will still happen because Kell Brook will need the money and, you know, will want to fight. But I want to see Kell first before I make any suggestions, really. And at the minute, I'd side with Khan winning that fight and Khan setting up a lucrative showdown with Mayweather. I think the difficulty behind that fight is as follows, which is that Khan Brook would need to be February or May, which puts into question whether Khan could fight Mayweather in May. And obviously Khan can't fight Mayweather in September because of the religious thing. So I'm inclined to think Khan may forget about the Brook fight, put all his cards trying to fight Mayweather in May like he did last time. Kell Brook maybe fights the Paulie Malignaggi, and then Khan looks to fight Brook at Wembley late summer. Obviously you've got the religious thing again though, Ramadan. Like, I don't know whether or not, maybe if he fought in July, I don't know. But it's interesting, and this is only testament to the calibre of the welterweight division, I guess, that we're able to have all these discussions and all these different names. But anyway, thanks for watching.